let's go for it. Magic in halacha. What is the deal? Superstition, Sefer Yetzirah, a little bit just on the side. What do you guys do? Kayachatuma, is it real? What's the story? What's going on? So what's allowed? What is not allowed? Let's get involved. Okay. So we have a pasuk in Shemais, Perach Beis, pasuk Yud Zayin, that says, Machshefa loy tichya. The Machshefa cannot live. Kill the witch. Yeah? Now, we were also told in Vayikra, Perek Yutes, pasuk Chavav, loy tenachshu v'loy tenenu. So, let's see what that's talking about. But apparently those are also magic-y, superstitious-y type things. And we'll see what that is referring to. Some fire jets going nonstop, huh? Okay, fine. So we have to figure out what is everything. What is machshefa? What is loy tenachshu? What is loy sanenu? So we have a Mishnah, Sanhedrin, Daf Samach Zayin Min Aleph, which says, what's Kishuf? That's a oisa. If you're oisa meisa, if you do a meisa Kishuf, you're chayiv. And as Rashi explains, what the chayiv, we're talking about chayiv skila. So somebody that when you're in the category of Kishuf and you're oisa meisa, whatever that means so far, that is going to be chayiv skila. However, if you're merely oiches es einayim, what does that mean? You grab somebody's eyes. Seems to be some form of trickery, some form of sleight of hand or something like that. That you are going to be pater. Notice, for those that know how to make a diak, it does not say it's mutter. It says it's your pater. You know, pater terms often mean pater alval asar. Let's see. And Rashi explains what's the difference between the Gemara, not the Gemara, Rashi. Rashi explains that in the case of Kishuf, you're actually going to be gathering the cucumbers. Somebody has all the cucumbers in the field, and you can use Kishuf and you can gather all the cucumbers together. Whereas when it comes to Oiches es Yadayim, es Einayim, you're not actually gathering the cucumbers. You're making it as if the cucumbers are gathered. It looks to the onlooker like you use this magic Kishuf to gather in the cucumbers, but in reality, it is just some form of optical illusion, and the cucumbers have not been gathered. In the Gemara, on this Mishnah, Rashi, Abaye explains, just like there are 3 levels when it comes to Shabbos, we know in Shabbos, you have 3 levels. You have chayiv skila, you have pater al aser, and you have mutter. So too, when it comes to Kishuf, you have 3 levels. You have a oisa meisa, which is chayiv skila. You have a oiches es einayim, which is pater al aser, so it still is aser. And the chayra, that generally means it's aser midrabanan, although over here there's a little bit what to debate. And the third category of Kishuf is if you are oisik b'sefer Yetzirah, like Rav Chanina Rav Oshia. Rav Chanina Rav Oshia, they were oisik in Sefer Yetzirah they would make on Erev Shabbos, make a igla tilsa, a shmak, a igla tilsa, it's like the best meat. And they make the animal, and then they would shecht it for Shabbos, have a gevaldik suda, and they used to use the Sefer Yetzirah. That is mutter. So the Gemara is saying being oisik b'sefer Yetzirah is mutter. And the Shla actually says, you know the case of the Yosef's brothers, they went and they ate Ever Minachai. Is it Shaykh? How could they go eat Ever Minachai? So what they actually did was, Zak the Shla, they made the animal with Sefer Yetzirah. And now, once the brothers made the animal with Sefer Yetzirah, there's no Isser Ever Minachai on a Sefer Yetzirah dik animal. Now, I don't know what they were exactly thinking, why they were doing this, like to mess with Yosef or something. I don't know, the Shah doesn't exactly explain that. But, therefore, since they created the animal with Sefer Yetzirah, there was no Ever Minachai. And there's another medrash which talks about they were with some woman, and they thought it was Yichud, but it wasn't Yichud, because once again, same thing of the woman was created with Sefer Yetzirah, obviously. So, whereas Yosef didn't chop that. But, once again, we see that the brothers are using Sefer Yetzirah, and we saw that Rav Chanina and Rav Oshia used Sefer Yetzirah, so I guess it's allowed to use Sefer Yetzirah. Huh? Well, we say that Adam Arishan. Where did Sefer Yetzirah come from? It's Machlokes Midrashim. Either Avram Avinu was the first one to have Sefer Yetzirah from Akash Baruch Hu to Avram Avinu, or it was Adam Arishan that got Sefer Yetzirah first, and they all did whatever they did. Ayin all is Midrashim, but we see there were some big boys who were using Sefer Yetzirah. The Chassam Sofer says that his Rebbe, Rav Nassan Adler, yeah, sure, he used Shemus to do different things. Many times he used Shemus. Why not? Now, is Shemus, what exactly does it mean to use Shemus? So I don't know what it means to use Shemus, but I'm guessing it has something to do with Sefer Yetzirah, but I'm not sure. Ask your local Orthodox Mekubal. Fine. Now, more fighter jets. All right. Now, the Chassam Sofer said, I just did that. Now, the Tshuvas Chacham Tzvi says that he's discussing the sugya about a minyan. And he says that if you make a goymel, a goylem, you're allowed, he's discussing whether you're allowed to use the goylem as a minyan. And the Mishnah Berurah even brings it down. So it's mamash l'maisa, you can use a shtickle Sefer Yetzirah, make a goylem. Shapsi, I know you're probably considering one day making a goylem with the Sefer Yetzirah, and I just want to let you know, gesundheit, hate, go for it. It's mutalach. You can use your Sefer Yetzirah. Okay, Reb Chaim Vital asked the Arizal to teach him Kabbalah Maisis. Apparently, there's two categories of Kabbalah. Apparently, in Kabbalah, there's Kabbalah, which is just understanding how things work, and there's Kabbalah Maisis, where you actually make things happen with Kabbalah. So Reb Chaim Vital asked the Arizal, Rebbe, teach me a shtickle Kabbalah's Maisis. It's going to be shmak. Right? So the Arizal said, hold up a second. There's three issues at hand. Number one, we can only teach Kabbalah Maisis to Tzaddik Gomer. I don't know if the Arizal was implying that Reb Chaim Vital wasn't a Tzaddik Gomer. I'm not really sure. If Reb Chaim Vital wasn't a Tzaddik Gomer, I'm not sure who is. But okay. Number two, you can only learn Kabbalah Maisis, obviously, if you aren't Tumah Meis. And unless you have a shtickle Paraduma around, I don't know how you're going to work this one out. How the Arizal worked it out? Tzarchin. Number three, let's face it, Tachas, nobody really knows how Kabbalah's Maisis works nowadays. Now, I don't really know what the Arizal meant. Did the Arizal himself not know what Kabbalah Maisis meant? And get it real, this is before like all the Shayla ben Ramosha stories. So I don't know chronologically how that all plays out. Once again, ask your local Orthodox Rebbe. Weiter. Now, Reb Chaim, talking about Rebbes, Reb Chaim Volozhin asked the Gra. He asked the Gra, could you make a goylem nowadays? So this is Gishmak. So the Gra said, sure, why not? Yeah, you can make a goylem nowadays. And so the Reb Chaim Vital asked, did you ever try to make one? He said, sure, yeah, I tried to make one. But then in the middle of making it, I saw a Siman Shemayim, and I stopped. So Reb Chaim Volozhin asked the Gra, how old were you when you did this? He said, before my bar mitzvah. Yeah, I don't know. The Gra wasn't known to troll people. So we're going to take that as legit. Okay, fine. Gishmak. Okay, so what's wrong with Kishuf? What's wrong with Kishuf? So the Chinuch says the problem is it will cause people not to believe in Hashem. Once people see all these different koiches around, it will take away their emunah in Hashem, and therefore it is not cool. Kishuf not cool. Zot Rabbeinu B'chaya. The Ikar Isser is that you're changing the laws of nature. Hashem created certain laws of nature. You're creating the laws of nature, changing the laws of nature, and that is the problem with Kishuf. Wait a second. If that's the problem with Kishuf, that you're changing the rules of nature, we just said that Shapsi is allowed to use Sefer Yetzirah. Now, how could it be that we're letting Shapsi use Sefer Yetzirah to make a goylem if you're not allowed to change nature? And that's what Rabbeinu B'chaya said. So, believe it or not, the Shayla, which sounds like, one of these wild Shaylas, there's actually multiple teruts into the Shayla. One terut is that since you're using the Shem Hashem in Sefer Yetzirah, Therefore, it's actually a covet to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be changing nature with the Shem Hashem, and Mela, it's not a problem. Number 2, the Meiri says that Sefer Yetzirah works within the rules of nature. Even though it doesn't work within what we generally view as nature, Teva, but since the world has Sefer Yetzirah built into the rules and regulations of this world, therefore it's working within the rules and regulations, creating a Goylem, a Sefer Yetzirah, or something like that, and therefore it's actually no problem. The Maral, he says, actually, you got to really understand what it's Sefer Yetzirah. When you do stuff with Sefer Yetzirah, really what's going on is it's really like a tefillah. And you use your Sefer Yetzirah to tefillah, and Hashem answers, you're not doing anything, you're not changing nature. Whereas Kishuf is you're going against nature, and therefore it's a problem. The Shach actually quotes the Darkei Moshe that you're not allowed to use Sefer Yetzirah. But L'maisa, we paskin, it's Mefarsh Shulchan Aruch, don't worry. Mefarsh Shulchan Aruch, we paskin, you're allowed to use Sefer Yetzirah. No, the Shach himself also doesn't call it. He quoted the Darkei Moshe, but the Shach is a machmer for the Darkei Moshe. The Shach is mekel, geschmack kula, you're allowed to use Sefer Yetzirah. Okay. And the Shach says, by the way, however, he has a shtickle chumrah, the Shach, it should only be used by practice by people that are isik b'kedusha b'tahara, and you're only allowed to use it for purposes of Kiddush Hashem or for big mitzvah purposes. So that means big mitzvah, not big pidyon. So if you want a pidyon with the kvittel, a little cash in the bottom, I don't know if that suffices as a reason to use Sefer Yetzirah. Okay, back to Abaya. So we said there were 3 categories, right? There was the Oisa Meisa, which is Chayev. There's Oichas Asanayim, Pater Ava'aser, and there was Sefer Yetzirah, which was Mutter. So we explained Sefer Yetzirah, which is Mutter. Let's go to the more extreme Aser, Oisa Meisa. So how exactly does Kishuf work? You say hocus pocus and some abracadabra, and all of a sudden it works. By the way, abracadabra, ani barakadabra. I will create like my words. A little spooky. I don't know if we should be saying abracadabra. Sounds like kayachatuma to me, so I would not abracadabra that. Okay, so how exactly does it work? So the Ramban explains that the stars and the constellations run the world. I'll explain more after everybody hears. Gilon's 40 already. But there's other people here, Gilon, so I don't want to explain to everybody else. You know what I'm saying? We'll talk after. So the way that I'll just give them the kitzer.
Wait till Chatzos, we'll talk.
Chatzos we'll talk. We'll just give them the kitzer, okay? So we have the stars and the constellations. They run the world, right? And the constellations have malachim in charge of them, obviously. So what Kishuf does is it uses koyach hatuma to force the constellations to act as you're telling it to act. And Amela, that's awesome. That's how it works. Kishuf. That's how the Rambam explains. The Shitas Rambam is, the Rambam, even though he was pretty Sephardi, he was not into all this stuff. If you know, there's a Shitas of the Rambam, and he pretty much says Kishuf is a fraud. He's not down for all this Kishuf, and he pretty much says it's a fraud. However, there are further Rambams. So what exactly does it mean? And most of it is going to say like what you can't do is stuff that appears as if you're using these kaichais, or the specific times of the day when this is the Metzias and you're tapping into those specific times of the day, but he's not as into that you could actually affect things. However, it seems like there's Mefarsh Rambams that you could. There's steerus in the Rambam, so to speak, whether he believes in Kishuf or doesn't believe in Kishuf, or there's work that needs to be done to deal with these steeras as to how exactly he holds. Everybody knows the famous Rambam, he doesn't hold of Shadim, even though there's tons of Midrashim, etc., Gemaras, and the Rambam in general was not such a hocus-pocus type of guy. However, the Gra says something wild. It's one of those things that, like, if you heard this from some unorthodox rabbi, you'd be ready to throw him in Cherem, Pashid. But since it was from the Gra, well, the Gra could say what he wants, because the Gra happened to be the Gra. So the Gra says that the Rambam was negatively affected by his philosophy. And that's why he misunderstood to not really believe in all these koiches and kishuf, etc., because he was wrong. He was just, he got tricked and negatively influenced by the philosophy that he learned. And that's what happens when you learn philosophy. That's what the Gra says about the Rambam. Once again, agreed? Modern Orthodox rabbi put him in Chayrim? For sure, right? Gra? All right, the Gra said it. He could say it. The Gra is the Gra. Okay, now let's talk about the middle category, because the middle category is going to be very important. That's pater, aval, aser, grabbing your eyes. What does that mean? Rashi explains, making it appear as if you did something when in reality you did nothing. It's the middle category of kishuf, and that is aser midrabanan seemingly. Pater of aser, there is a little hack on this, but the basic understanding, the consensus understanding of pater of aser is just like it is in Shabbos, that it means it's aser midrabanan. Okay, now we have a different Gemara. We have a different Gemara in Sanhedrin Samachem Beis, which explains the pasuk in Vayikra Yotes Chafav, which the pasuk says Loi Tichla Al Dam, Loi Tinachshu, Veloi Sainenu. What is this Sainenu? It's one of those things that you just read and you don't exactly know what exactly it means. So what does it mean? So there's two pshatim in the Gemara. I'm going to skip to Shitas Chacham because that's the one that we care about and Paskin like. So do not Chamim Oimrim Ma'oinin. What is Ma'oinin? That's Ha'eiches Es Einayim. That's somebody that grabs your eyes. This is a couple blot away from the other one. It appears like you did, as Rashi explains, it makes it appear as if you did something spectacular. Adds in a little bit different. Not just that you did something, but you did something spectacular when you really did nothing. And this is a shot in the pasuk. It's a deraisa. So it's a little bit weird. When we're talking about kishuf, the three categories of kishuf, there was a middle category of aiches as a naim, which was aser midarabanan, pater al aser. And when it comes to loy soinenu, there's almost the same exact thing, aiches as a naim. But over here, Rashi explains a little bit differently, that it's you did something wild. You tricked people into thinking you did something wild, when in reality, you did nothing. But one of them is aser midarabanan, one of them is aser midaraisa. The one in kishuf is darabanan, the one in ma'oinin is aser deraisa. Okay, hard to understand. Let's see how the Rambam explains it. So the Rambam in Avodah Zarah, Perek Yud Aleph, Halacha test. Interesting, just a note throwing out there. He puts kishuf in Avodah Zarah, which off the bat I would have not really assumed to do that. I would have thought kishuf is kishuf and Avodah Zarah is Avodah Zarah. For some reason, the Rambam puts kishuf in Avodah Zarah like it's some form of subcategory. Okay, so Avodah Zarah, Perek Yud Aleph, Halacha test. It's aser l'oinin. That's the second pasuk, the one that we just did. And to be oiches as a name is aser, pretending to do something spectacular, as Rashi said, when really you're doing nothing at all. That's ma'oinin, and you're chayiv malchus. That's the race. You're chayiv malchus. Now, a couple of Rambams later. So, correct. What's the v'chein? That is seemingly is the explanation. I had the same kasha, and I didn't see it asked. I mean, I didn't look crazy hard, but in the basic Nesikalim, I didn't see them asked it, but I had the same question, because similarly from the Gemara, Oiches Eseneim is the explanation of Ma'oinin. Whereas in the wording of the Rambam, it's Ma'oinin and V'chein. I don't have an answer to Akasha, Bar Shekavanti, and I didn't see it in the basic Nesikalim, so I'm not sure what the answer to that question is. Okay, but definitely it's either is the definition or it's part of the general category of ma'oinin is oiches as a name, grabbing somebody's eyes, making it appear as if you did something wild, amazing, when in reality you did nothing at all. Now let's look a couple of Rambams later, which that previous Rambam that we just did was Halacha Tes. We jump 5 more Rambams down to Halacha Tes Vav. It says, this is around, now we're already talking about Kishuf. So if you do straight up Kishuf, you're chayiv misa. If you're, that's talking about ha'oisa meisa Kishuf. However, aval ha'oiches es einayim loike malchus mardis. But if you're Eichas as Einayim, you get Malkus Mardis. You get a Durabanan Dika Malkus. What is that? It's making it appear as you did a Maisa when you didn't do the Maisa. Okay. So something very cryptic going on over here. Seemingly there's a steer in the Gemara, and now there's a steer in the Rambam, which is mirroring the Gemara. How are we going to deal with this? So the Bach comes to the... Really, it's a lot of Halacha Mishnah as well. There's a lot of Nisakim that deal with this, but some things are mesugel to be called by different Achronim. This is the answer of the Bach. He was the one who was mesugel. He's not the only one who gives this answer, but we call it the Bach. So what does the Bach say? The Bach says, he answers, that the Rambam, the first one, is talking about the Isser Loisainenu. So when you do nothing in reality and make it look like you did something, that's also deraisa in your chayav malchus. The second Rambam is referring to Kishuf, and that's when you make it look like you changed reality when in truth it is still there. Now, what is the actual difference? The actual difference is when it comes to the one of Loisanenu, you did nothing subnatural. You did nothing. It was pure sleight of hand. And with that pure sleight of hand, that's Asur Midaraisa Chayav Malkus. However, the one about Kishuf, that is using unnatural whatever, to make it look as if you did something, when in reality you didn't. Meaning, the Kishuf creates the optical illusion. It makes it look like you used Kishuf to make it look like you gathered cucumbers. But in reality, if you go feel around, the cucumbers are where they always were. You didn't actually affect the change, but you used Kishuf to create the optical illusion. Now, this is actually a little bit not in line with how you would expect it. It's not how it's not in line with how you would expect. If you use the Kishuf to create the optical illusion, that's Asur D'Rabbanan. If you make a pure optical illusion, a pure sleight of hand, with no Kishuf at all, that would be Asur Midaraisa. So you would probably expect it to be the other way around. But that's how it comes out. That's the Bach. And if we actually check out the Ram Sefer Mitzvos, it's more or less spelled out this way. So it's D'Raisa when you trick people into looking like you did something when you did nothing.
Okay, that's D'Raisa.
That's D'Raisa. And it's D'Rabbanan when you use Koyach HaKishuf to make it look like you did something that you didn't. It's counterintuitive.
So what did Achizah say Naim that the Rambam talks about?
The Achizah Naim that's just tricking the guy into that it looks like you did something when it's just your quick hands. That's D'Raisa. That's Loisanenu. That's Ma'inyan.
So good card trick would be D'Raisa.
Yeah, when we get into the card tricks. But yeah, as of now. But when you actually hocus pocus, abracadabra, koyachatoma, kishaf, to make it look like you made the Statue of Liberty disappear when you really didn't, that would be D'Rabbanan. Which definitely is counterintuitive. Okay, and the Sefer Mitzvahs really spells this out. He explains, Loisanenu, that includes the actions of the magicians, the sleight of hands, convincing people you're doing something when you're really not. And the Rambam gives some Geshmaka examples of this Isser D'Raisa. He says a guy, he puts a string into his sleeve, and then he pulls out a snake. That would be an example of Isser. Or he takes a coin, he throws it away, and then he takes it out of somebody else's mouth. You can totally see this. This is regular magic tricks. Asur D'Raisa is what the Rambam says. Pretty mefurish in the Sefer Mitzvahs, and it's pretty clear from the general Rambams as well. However, when you use some form of kishuf well, that's what he says by Loisanenu. I didn't see the Sefer Mitzvahs by kishuf, but l'chara. It's really D'Raisa is mostly a seder. Fine. The Radbaz, however, says no, this is not logical. If you just had quick hands, you cannot be over. There's no Isser in that. That's not Kishuf. Kishuf is Kishuf. Ma'inyan is also some supernatural thing. I don't know how the Radbaz differentiates between what is Ma'inyan and what is Kishuf, And what's patur of aser? What's the chizas? I didn't know how he learns the whole sugya, but he definitely says that quickness of your hand is not aser. That's mutter. And the Tiferes Yisrael, which is the parish of the Mishnayos, also says that if it's just what's not slightness of hand? What is it called? Called sleight of hand? So. Yes, if it's just sleight of hand, therefore that is not aser mid'oraisa. Okay, once again, Tzarkin had they learned the rest of the sugya. Okay, fine. We have Machlokes Rishonim. The Rambam obviously has more weight than the Radbaz and the Tiferes Yisrael. And as I already pointed out, if you're paying attention, Rashi is also with the Rambam, seemingly, that the trick, sleight of hand would be aser mid'oraisa. What does the Shulchan Aruch do? So Zak the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch says it's in Yeridea Kuf Ayin Tes Vav. It says that Seif Yitzir is mutter. Don't worry, Seif Yitzir is mutter. But Oiches Eseinayim, that is aser. Now, what type of Oiches Eseinayim is the Shulchan Aruch referring to? He wrote it stam. Now, if the Shulchan Aruch wrote it stam without specifying what he means, it's clear that the simple expectation is going to be any achizas einayim, any grabbing of somebody's eyes, any sleight of hand, any tricking of person is going to be aser. Okay, that's what he means. Zak the Shach. So the Shach explains, he says, I am Bach, check out the Bach, that the Shulchan Aruch is asering even sleight of hand, even tricking somebody with quick hands. And that's what he says. That's what the Shach says. Okay, so far this does not sound very good. The start of the sugya it does not sound so cool. Magic is not sound. Listen, I like magic. I think a good magic trick is very geschmack. I'm all for it. I enjoy it. But this sugya, I have to be honest, this sugya is not looking good. But don't worry, I'm on your team. I want it to be mutter. But it's not doing well. Maybe the early Achrayim can help us. Let's see what they do. So let's go. The Chachmas Adam. Any good Jew in Lita will learn the Chachmas Adam. What does the Chachmas Adam say? So he says a Klal Peites. What is Ma'oinin? Ma'oinin is Achizas Eseinayim. Being quick-handed and tricking somebody. And he has the same examples. Putting a string into your sleeve and pulling out a snake. Throwing away a coin, pulling it out of somebody else's mouth. That is ma'oinin, and that is aser mid'oraisa. That's what the Chachmas Adam says. And he says, these barchanim at weddings, the Tischenspielers, the Geschmack, for the non-Yiddish, a tish is a table. A spieler is like somebody who plays around with things or whatever. So I was wondering if the Tischenspielers who are doing all the magic at the weddings, I was wondering if they stood on the table. Is that like the stage? Maybe they're called a Tischenspieler because they stood on the table like a stage. I was wondering. So the Tischenspielers, they would do all these tricks. And he says, it's aser! He starts screaming. It's aser for a Tischenspieler to be Tischenspieling and doing all these magic tricks. And it's also for the guy who hired him. The guy who hired him is Oiver Lifnei Iver. How could you hire a Tischenspieler to Tischenspiel and do all these magic? You can't do that. M'samech Chasam Kal. We'll see what Ravadi says about that in a minute. And, well, obviously the Chachmas Adam wasn't so impressed. And he says, don't just think, don't worry, I'm not doing it. I didn't hire the guy. I'm just watching. Watching? Also, listakel! You can't watch! You have a chiyuv of teichacha. You have a chiyuv of making a macho. Gival! Also, me'oinin b'beis ha'mishtir. Yeah? Start burning garbage cans. That's how you gotta do it. That's what the Chachmas Adam says. We have a makar in the Chachmas Adam for burning garbage cans in middle of the Tischenspieler's performance at a chasana. No magic allowed. The Chachmas Adam did not help us. He didn't seem so good. Okay, these Litvaks, they can't enjoy any life. Let's go to Hungary. And Heimish Yid. the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. I mean, he wasn't such a Hamish Yid, but he was hungry. So the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, he's going to help us. Zok the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. It's Aser Midaraisa, these people that are doing sleight of hand. And these Tishin Spielers at the Chasanas, what they're doing is Aser. Oh, by the way, one thing I forgot, the Chacham Zadim has a kula. He says, if it's a goy, you're allowed to, that's not a problem. You can watch a goy do it. The goy doesn't have a Isser to, if you find the goyish Tishin Spieler, so a goyish magician, so that's okay. The goy could do it. You could watch. It's not an Isser for him. There's no chiyuv of macha. There's no chiyuv of techacha, and that's beseder. But Zatar El Yashiv, he's medayik. Yeah, you could watch the guy's performance, but you still can't ask the guy. You can't hire the guy to do the magic show. Why? Amir Lakum. It's also to do the. It's also to do the magic. It's also to do the sleight of hand. What you think Amir Lakum is only for Shabbos? To hire the guy to do it is Isser of Amir Lakum. So, but if there's a guy doing a show, you want to watch it, Beseder. Okay. That's how they come out. All right, so the Kitzur's not into this. The Chachmas Adam's not into this. Rabbi say this is not looking so good. Okay, how are we going to get out of this? Let's maybe go to some modern day places. So let's go to Rav Vadia. Rav Vadia's going to help, right? We can always rely on Rav Vadia when you need a heter, right? Zatra Rav Vadia, doing the sleight of hand, doing these magic tricks is Aser Midaraisa. There's no heter. Oh, you might say, what about Purim? What about Simchas Chas V'Kala? You could do Isur for Purim and Simchas Chas V'Kala? What type of Purim is that? What type of Simchas Chas V'Kala is it? Here, we're going to do Isur. We're going to bring in somebody to eat pork in front of the Simchas Chas V'Kala, and that's going to be entertainment? Chas V'Shalom. Okay, Zok the Shevet Levi. The Shevet Levi says it's Aser. It's pashut that it's Aser. There's nothing to discuss. Well, I mean, if you have something like the first Rambam, the first Shulchan Aruch, the Achrayim, it's a pasuk in the Torah. It's Aser. That is what the Shevet Levi says. Rav Elyashiv, it's Aser. However, Rav Elyashiv has a shtickle kula, which is not such a kula. Rav Elyashiv says, if you show the magic trick, how you do it, then it's okay because you're no longer doing a sleight of hand. You're no longer tricking them because they know how to do it. However, once again, to be clear, Rav Elyashiv, he's saying you have to show them how you do the magic trick before you do the magic trick. Because if you first do the magic trick, you've been over the Isser. When they know how to do it already, then you could do it. Shkoyach. That's not a great, that doesn't work so well. And there are some that say that Rav Elyashiv allowed, Rav Elyashiv didn't write so much, so most things are quoting. Some say that Rav Elyashiv allowed, if you show 3-4 tricks, and once again, you show the tricks beforehand, and they see already 3-4 tricks of how to do that, then afterwards, the guy could continue with the tricks. Because everybody already totally gets the idea that this is pure hand tricks. Sagt Ramesha Sternbach, the big machmer. Is he going to come for a kula? That would be cool. Let's see. Ramesha Sternbach explains the Isser is only for things that can be confused with Kishuf. It's true that sleight of hand is Aser, but it's only sleight of hand that can be confused with Kishuf. So if it is clear to everyone there that it's just sleight of hand, and the guy announces that he's just doing tricks and it's all sleight of hand and there's no Kishuf, and he shows a trick and he shows people how this is just sleight of hand, then it's mutter medina to do this. So our first heter comes from none other than Ramesha Sternbach. However, he does conclude, Lamaisa, it's not fitting to do these magic shows, and we shouldn't do these magic shows. And sometimes he says, the Gilon, he'll appreciate it. Sometimes he says, for South Africans, it's okay. You ever see that? He says it once or twice. I've seen it once or twice. For South Africans, Hamevin Yothim. I was expecting it in this tshuva for him to come and say for South Africans is okay, but he didn't have that line. From the Maisi, and he says, but card tricks are allowed. He puts card tricks as a different category. It's not like hocus pocus magic. The whole concept of card tricks is just like a game, so to speak. So he says card tricks that would be allowed. Okay, so Ramosha Sternbach was our first heter, but still he wasn't like a blanket heter because he really said, we shouldn't really be doing this. He didn't say it's us to do. He said you really shouldn't be doing this. The Shevet Levi says, what a horrible idea this is. To show people tricks? You're going to teach them how to be over Yisurim? It's bad enough you're doing a magic show yourself. You're going to teach them. Here, look, I'm going to be over lots of Yisurim. And not only that, I'm going to teach you guys how to be over Yisurim. What a bad idea. What are you going to do? Give Chazar recipes as well? Come on. Okay. The Avnei Yosher, he questions all these heterim. He says, even if it's true that everyone knows, let's say everybody knows that the magic's not real. Even if that's true, that's not magic. Nevertheless, it's usher to do the sleight-handedness. When you have the Isser in the Torah, do you start saying, oh, well, the time for the Isser doesn't apply nowadays. Nowadays, things are Isser. That's not how it works in Isurim. If it's usher, it's usher. I don't care whether people are going to get confused anymore. It's a pretty stark akasha. And therefore, he says it would be a problem. And he says that even if you want to say that, if the reason doesn't apply, the Isser doesn't apply anymore, it's still Asr Gomer to do a magic show in front of a kid. Because the kids are going to believe it. They're going to get confused. Kids are gullible. And therefore, that would be a problem. All right, we need some help here. This is not going how I want it. I want my magic show. I have Moshe Sternbach, but if I start relying on Moshe Sternbach too much, I'm going to be in trouble with all the schupras. You know what I mean? Before I know it, I'm going to be part of the Eid Cheretis. All right, so Moshe Feinstein. So Moshe Feinstein in the second to last volume of Igrish Moshe, the one that he came out with after he died, Hamevin Yavin. So he wrote a tshuva. He examined the whole sugya. The Chachmas Adam says the sleight of hand is Aser, and the Shach, who says that sleight of hand is Aser the Bach, he quotes the whole sugya. And he says, Vadai Dover Temua. This is for sure something strange, weird. What's up? It doesn't make sense. How could you Aser a talent? How could you Aser a speed? A guy goes like that quickly, and that's going to be Aser? How could there be Usser? What's Usser with that? He didn't do anything. He's quick, he's fast, he has a talent, and you're going to Usser that? What is it Usser? It's Nish Mistaber. It doesn't make sense. And I have a raya from Midrashim, from the Torah, from Nach. When Esav didn't want Yaakov to be buried in the Maris Mapela, what did they do? They said, Naphtali, you mind running over to Mitzrayim, running back? In 45 minutes, he ran to Mitzrayim to run back with the star that showed that Yaakov owned the Maris Mapela. What do you think everybody looking there would say? Check out this Kishuf macher, huh? That's what I would say. But it wasn't a problem because it wasn't Kishuf that Naphtali did. He just ran really fast, and there's nothing else there. Shimshon, imagine Shimshon taking these chevra and Pelishtim, taking one guy in his hand and throwing him and knocking over 30 other Pelishtim and tearing down buildings. Imagine you saw Shimshon do that. What would you say? Kishuf. But it wasn't Aser. Why? He was just using strength. He had a talent, or he had super strength. He used it. That can't be Aser. However, Ramosha says, this is only derech limud. This is halacha loi lemaisa. Because what could I do? I know the Bach. I know the Shach. Rabbi say, our Rabbeim have already paskined on this. I have already paskined on this, that this is Aser. He said, but don't get me wrong, I'm not in Suffolk that I'm right. I am right. But still, I'm not going to paskin against all these achrayim. And he says, and if somebody would ask, nobody's asked me this question, apparently, but if somebody asked me this question, I would weasel my way out of the question. I would get out of it. And if they backed me into a corner and made me answer, then I would say it's mutter, because if I believe it's mutter, that's what I have to say. Now, who thinks Moshe would have liked that everybody says, oh yeah, you can have a magic show, Moshe's matter? Does that sound like what he said? Moshe is very often misquoted as Moshe's matter. The word is Moshe al pi limud. The way that Moshe learned the sugya, Moshe was matter doing magic. But Lamaisa Moshe is very clear that he didn't want you to be soymech on his pshat. Not because he didn't hold it. He really held it. He held it that it is Lamaisa true, but he definitely did not want you relying on it. Fine. Then there's where Moshe was asked, but Lamaisa, there are kids that are going to believe it. The whole point of Moshe was, it's just a chachma. It's just a talent because people don't believe that this kishuf is real. So Moshe was asked, but kids believe it. So Moshe says, no, the kids don't really believe it. Now we have to ask ourselves, some people, when Moshe writes that in 1970, whatever, it's not a gzeir s'kosef. We have to ask ourselves, 50 whatever years later, different parts of the world, maybe kids believe it more, maybe they believe it less. But the question needs to be asked, do they believe it? But once again, Ramesh is working with that if they believe it, it's a problem. If they don't believe it, Ramesh al pi limud, not lamaisa, is mekel. Now, why did the Shach and the Bach, Ramesh had a raya from Naphtali and Shimshon that you're allowed to have crazy talents that the world's going to think is kishuv. It's not a problem. Why didn't the Shach and Bach like that raya? I think it's very simple. There's a very simple kasha in Ramesh. There's a pashut achilak.
In those days it was Maisim B'chol Yom. Everyone was involved with hocus pocus, no?
So that's a bigger reason why it's a problem what they did.
No, so it wasn't exceptional. It was.
Yeah, I would thought you were going to say they thought that they did Sefer Yetzirah. That's what I would have answered, maybe. They did Sefer Yetzirah, but I'm not a bucky in Sefer Yetzirah, so I don't know whether I could say that or not. I'm only, halfway through. So, Lamaisa, there's very simple teretz. Naphtali what was he doing? He wasn't tricking people. He was running. What was Shimshon doing? He wasn't tricking people. Shimshon was using his strength. The magician is coming and tricking people. That's what he's doing. It's not that he's tricking people as well. That's the mace he's doing. So probably the Shach and the Bach and whatever are going to say, yeah, you could say you're allowed to do your own business. You can't say you're allowed to do your own business when you are tricking people. And the Chayr, it's a Pashut Chiluk. Now, why didn't Ramesh hold this Chiluk? I guess he said, I don't care whether it's your Iker Kavana or a side thing, and we can make him a whole machlokes like that. Okay. Now, people want to suggest that in the olden days, people believed in this stuff more. In the time of the Chacham Saddam and the Kitzer, back then people really believed in this stuff. But nowadays, people don't really believe in this. So Rabelsky says that is historically inaccurate. Rabelsky says that 200 years ago, that was the intellectual revolution. And yes, you wrote this in English. Intellectual. 200 years ago in Europe, when the Chachma Saddam and the Kitzer were around, that was the time of the intellectual revolution, the time known as rationalism, when in general Europe they rejected mysticism, yeah, and they only wanted rationalism. So that it wasn't in to believe in all this stuff 200 years ago. However, in the last 40 years, Rabelsky writes, the world is becoming more and more open up to these powers and koiches and whatever. I think with the hippie movement, it brought in more of this type of whatever into the world. The people are more open-minded to different koiches and stuff. And as you see, all the Chinese medicine type stuff has become standard practice, and all energy and all these different things have become, people believe in things more than they used to, and therefore it's not pashut to say this. Lamaisa. If you go to one of these things, you ask these little kids, after like a really good magician, are any of the kids going to believe that what he did was supernatural? It might depend on where you are. I think it depends what type of Shabbos table did the kid grow up on. If he grew up by some Kalta Litvak or whatever, maybe not. If he grew up that every Shabbos table he's ever been to, he hears about the Rebbe did a Meifus, and this, the Meifsim of this Rebbe is nothing like the Meifsim of the last Rebbe. And that Mekubal, you can see from this part of the world to the other part of the world, and that Mekubal turned Yenim into a frog, and then brought him to frog, add a frog, frog person, and he knew exactly where the treasure was buried. If you're into that, well, I'm not getting involved whether one should be or not. But if every Rebbe, if you at your Shabbos table, every Rebbe does a Meifus, and does this, and the world flips, and he knows everything from here to there, and every Mekubal, everything, right? And that 7-year-old kid, that 6-year-old kid, and the magic guy goes up and says, "We're gonna see. I'm gonna change this. I'm gonna snap my fingers, and it's gonna change." You think he's not gonna believe it? I think some of the kids are gonna believe it.
He's not the Rebbe.
I know he's not the Rebbe, but he doesn't know how to be mechalik. So I think there's going to be kids that are going to believe it. It depends on you. You have to know your audience, but it's very hard to know your audience. So I don't know. It sounds a little scary to me. The Rebelsky says something interesting, though. He says, I'm not a fan of this whole magic thing. He didn't like it. However, he said, since there is a shita, there is a radbaz that says anything that's not supernatural is allowed. Therefore, I can't be meicha against somebody who's doing it because there is a shita that allows it. But he didn't advise it. Now, after this whole... Oh, I forgot one thing. The Divrei Yatzif, the Kloisenberger Rebbe, he allows the magic. What's the why? The magic shows. The sleight of hand. Because he said, who answers it? The Rambam. The Rambam, he didn't believe in any of these koichliks and any of these powers. And the Kloisenberger Rebbe was a Rebbe. And he said, we know the powers are legit. We know it's real. Right? We know there's koiches. So in this sugya, the Rambam's wrong, so to speak. In this sugya, we hold to the Radbaz. We know the Radbaz is the right one in the sugya, and the Rambam's the wrong one in the sugya. And therefore, we're going to rely on the Radbaz in the sugya, and maybe we're going to go with the Radbaz, and the magic tricks and sleight of hand will be allowed. So that's what the Kloisenberger Rebbe says. Once again, it seems he's going against Shulchan Aruch, but that's how he paskins. Okay, so L'maisa, there's something strange going on here. I learned the sugya. I tried to get magic to be allowed. I really wanted it to be allowed, and I didn't end up in such a geschmacka spot. So the question is, why do so many people do magic? So I think there's 3 factors why we have magic shows within the regular firm community, even though it's mamish not pashut. Number 1 is there are mekilim. The Kloisenberger Rebbe is mekel. Ramesh Sternbach is mekel as long as you show a trick and we assume that nobody believes it. Right? And Ramosha, the limud of Ramosha is that we can be mekel, once again, assuming nobody believes it. So there are shitas, even though the consensus of the poskim is definitely ta'aser, but there are shitas that are mekel. And by the way, I'd rather have a Goyish magician than a Jewish one. Okay. Factor number 2 is, it might sound like a petty point, but it's a real point. It's very difficult to find kosher entertainment. What are you going to do? You bring in a comedian so he could speak about Lashon Hara, make fun of Gedolim, make fun of sex of Klal Yisrael, say stuff that aren't proper. That's not cool. Oh, we'll have a concert. Oh, that's a whole other share. The clicker room. Okay, so you can do the clicker room once if you know what I'm talking about. Great. Where it's like a game show where the kids try to answer trivia questions. Okay, you can do that once. And also try to avoid the Lashon Hara and the making fun of people. It's very complicated, right? Okay, Jewish entertainment, firm entertainment is a big challenge. So that's also part of the reason that people are mekel, because there's limited options. Number 3, I'm not saying it's good to be mekel, but just it's a reality. And factor number 3 is that it seems that it's been the minhag for hundreds of years. You know, the Tischenspielers have been doing this as entertainment for hundreds of years. For hundreds of years, The Tischenspielers were doing magic tricks, and the Rabbanim were screaming. So nowadays too, the magicians are doing the magic tricks, and Rav Vadia and Rav Vosner, etc., and they're screaming. That's the minhag. And I'm half joking and I'm half serious. Because there is such a thing that this has been going on. Why has it been going on? I don't know, but it's been going on. And there's always been Rabbanim who are saying, nobody believes it, it's okay. Even though the main poskim were answering, but there was something going on that was keeping it going, and that maybe doesn't change so easily. And number 3, that really is number 3, actually. I'll keep it like that. Now, so based on this, based on our Belsky, however, the Metzias might be worse nowadays than it was by Chacham Zadim. So it might not be proper that the minhag continued, but that's how it works. Now, I'm not convinced with Ramosha's view in the Metzias that the kids don't believe it, because I think some of the kids are going to believe it. L'meisa. So what should we do? What should somebody do? L'chayra, do not take this up as a profession. Do not become a professional Tischenspieler. Do not become a professional magician. L'chayra, it's not a good profession for a nice Jewish boy. Number 2, l'chayra, you should not hire one of these guys. L'chayra, it's the wrong thing. Many poskim, it's lif neiver. Many poskim, it's not the right type of thing. L'chayra, it shouldn't be done. Now, if there's a magic show, do you have to burn a garbage in the middle of the magic show to make a macha? Techacha. L'chayra, not. L'chayra, once there are poskim, even though it's miyada poskim, once there are poskim, there are makel to allow it, so l'chayra, there's no chiyuv of techacha. That guy who's doing it is allowed to hold of whoever he wants to hold of, and therefore l'chayra, it could continue. That's how I view it. And there might be some poskim that are going to say you could do it. The minhag is to rely on the mekilim, and once again, they're allowed to say it. I'm telling you how I concluded the sugya. I would have preferred concluding the sugya that way, but I have to be honest about where I ended. And that's where I ended in the sugya. Thank you guys for listening.
Oh, yeah.